Hello, thanks for having us. I'm Faye. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the principal product consultant at Armakuni. I've been working in product and tech for about 15 years. I've been a hands-on product manager, a leader, and nowadays I help organisations adopt product practices within engineering so that they can generate more value and have happier teams.
Hi, I'm Rich Allen. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a fast flow facilitator at Kundra Solutions, which is a boutique consultancy on the South Coast. I'm also a Team Topologies valued practitioner and author of a new book called User Needs Mapping. So I generally help organizations of all sizes adopt the patterns and principles of Team Topologies.
And Armakuni is a tech consultancy. Our mission is to return joy and creativity to the world of engineering. And we work with a wide variety of organisations. And by working with many different organisations, it helps us see patterns. One of the patterns that I've noticed, but only recently found a name for, is the triangle of tension. So if you Google the triangle of tension, this is what you find. And whilst we're not here to talk about the tension in our shoulders, it is where a lot of us carry tension. And it's actually useful to tune into these signals, how tension might manifest for us physically or emotionally, as well as noticing tension in other people. So if we tune into tension, we can have a think about, well, if something feels off and if we need to investigate a bit further. So seeing as it's mid-afternoon on the second day, I'd like to invite you all to have a bit of a stretch. You can stay in your seats, and this is completely optional, but if you would like to join me, please lift up your shoulders to your ears, roll your shoulders back. Lift up to your ears, roll back. One more time, up to your ears, and roll back. There we are, lovely, thanks. Okay, so the triangle of tension. Let's get stuck in. Tension is inevitable in product engineering work, and ignoring it is unhealthy and problematic. But tension isn't always a bad thing. It can tell us when something is a bit off and if we need to adjust our focus. If we leverage tension, we can use it to achieve better outcomes. So last year I was working with a client and I had an epiphany because there was tension and it was persistent and I couldn't put my finger on where it was coming from. So I was quite tenacious in trying to figure this out. I eventually did, surfaced the tension, got it out in the open, had a really good discussion with the client, and then it led to better collaboration and actually a better outcome. And then I reflected on this a bit and thought about it a bit more and realised, actually, looking back across my career and all the different work I've done, there's always tension. And gave it a bit more thought, and I realised that there's three key elements: wants, needs, and feasibility. So this is how the idea of the triangle emerged, because it's the interplay of these three elements that is this navigation of tension. So wants are often subjective, surface level. They might be hunches. They might come from individual stakeholders. They might be things like, we need an AI solution. But they don't usually reveal the underlying need or goal or purpose. And if the context isn't clear, it's quite hard to get behind that sort of request. It's quite hard for teams to align around wants. Building solely on wants will lead to feature chasing and products that don't really solve any problems. Needs, however, are objective. They are deeper. They're evidence-based. They come from research, insight. They're about goals and challenges. And they're usually describing a problem that the user is trying to solve or an outcome that is required. And then we have feasibility. This is about constraints. So constraints are time, budget, technology, capacity we all have to work within. But they're not just limitations, they're opportunities for us to be creative and figure out how best to focus our efforts. Understanding feasibility informs trade-offs and ensures we're building something that's not only valuable but also deliverable. So by leaning into tension and the friction there, we can use it as a tool to learn and adapt and achieve better outcomes. So it's inevitable. And in software delivery, I'm sure you're all familiar with trying to balance speed, quality, and cost. And in product work, We always work in the intersection between user experience, business value, and tech feasibility. But tension gives us the opportunity to navigate a path forward. And what these models don't do is they don't talk about the human interaction. They don't talk about the human skills we need to navigate tension. And that's why I think the triangle of tension does something different and is interesting to explore. So talking about the human skills, what we're really talking about is the socio part of a socio-technical system. And put simply, socio-technical systems theory describes organizational design and management with recognition of the interdependence between the social and the technical aspects of that system. It views an organization or a work process as a system where these two components interact and influence each other. And it states that optimal performance is achieved when both are jointly optimized. So let's talk a bit more about human skills. Successful navigation of tension is the outcome that we're striving for, but it's really the tip of the iceberg. And as we carve our path forward through strategy creation, product development, efforts, internal politics, etc., our actions and our decisions, they're all influenced by all of these factors around us, inside the organization, outside the organization. And so there's many human skills that contribute to a strong navigation game. Some of them are listed here. It's not an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea of the types of things that we can focus on if we want to enhance our navigation skills. So calling on our human skills will help us navigate our path successfully. So let's have a look at the common contributors that we see that contribute to tension in the work that we do with our clients. In regard to wants, a very common pattern is the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion, or another influential person imposing their requirements and dictating what needs to be done. And at best, this is poor communication, and at worst, this could be the pursuit of an individual agenda. But it results in disempowerment, misalignment, and waste. With needs, a common pattern we see is product theatre. So this is an anti-pattern where an organisation has adopted product but only in name and not in practice. It can look like individuals being rebadged as product people, but without the support or training or organisational changes that enables true adoption of product ways of working. It also includes engineers being disconnected from the user and ultimately disconnected from the purpose of their work. Because if they don't have that understanding, they're reduced to just completing tasks. They're not empowered to design meaningful solutions. And so these anti-patterns show that the fundamental principles and understanding of good product practices are not well defined and not well understood within the organisation. With feasibility, a really core underlying issue is the lack of strategic alignment. So when tech teams or technology ambitions and budgets are not strategically backed, it makes prioritization really hard. And tech teams then get viewed as a cost center rather than value generating. They get squeezed into taking shortcuts. This results in rework and additional cost in maintenance work, etc. But feasibility is fundamentally about trade-offs. So the stronger strategic alignment that's there, it makes those trade-offs and those decisions much easier to make more consistently over the long term. So to combat all of this, we recommend building humane workplaces. And Rich is going to tell us more about that.
Indeed. So what do we mean by humane workplaces? Ultimately, we're thinking about organizations where people can do their best work without unnecessary pain. And it's very much aligned with the Team Topologies core mission, which is to make teams or make work more humane and effective for everybody. So organizations really should be seeking to create an environment that's going to foster trust and enable critical thinking to really support those human skills within the organization. So as Faye mentioned earlier, or introduced earlier, the socio-technical system, so Team Topologies really sits at the very heart of that socio-technical system. And it provides the vocabulary, the constraints, the practices to empower those organizations to sense when a change is needed and enable them to continuously evolve. And it's through this use of shared language, that we can begin to enable more humane and effective environments for everybody. So let's explore this a little bit more. So at the top of this slide, you should see like the flow, how work might flow through an organization. So it starts off across the top from moving from strategy to roadmaps and goals through to planning, execution, and delivery. So how might flow work through? So moving from left to right, the flow of value, we start off with, I think someone else mentioned, in quotes, the business. They have a conversation normally with the PMO or something like that about initiatives. And this is then handed over to the business analysts, maybe some architects, the security team, maybe a selection of tech leads, where they're coming together to assess the feasibility, the size, highlight any security concerns, something like that. Then they might hand it back over to the PMO again and the business analysts, where they're going to collaborate together to try to work out how to coordinate all of this work across those teams. And then it's handed over finally to the teams, where the teams get a kickoff. And this is where the first time they've actually seen what that work is. And then, of course, those teams all start at the same time, normally to some kind of 2-week cadence, making sure that we can't actually deliver any value until all of those teams deliver at the same time. So they're coupled in time. They have some kind of temporal coupling. They also then have to coordinate between each other to get that work across and potentially collaborate with some kind of change control board. And then finally, they can hand over to the operations team where it gets into production. And if we're really, really lucky, they may actually ask a question about, did this actually work? And have some kind of conversation about whether it was viable or valuable to the business. So a quick show of hands. Is this familiar to anybody? Familiar, anyone? Awesome. So, I mean, it's awesome, but not awesome, right? If you're feeling this pain, that's not awesome. So how does the triangle of tension then sort of manifest within this kind of space? So we can consider each element of the triangle and score it based on our confidence. So if we've got low confidence in a particular area, we might score it low, a 1 or a 2. If we've got some kind of partial evidence, maybe anecdotal insights, or a slight bit of confidence, we might give it a medium score. And then if we've got high confidence or strong evidence of the thing, we'll give it a high score. Okay, so that's how we're scoring each section. So if we've got high wants, excuse my voice, high wants, low needs, and low feasibility, as Faye previously mentioned, it's possibly a situation where we have a hippo or an influential person with a surface level want or an expressed desire. So we're not confident, we're really confident there's a stakeholder want, but we're not confident at all that what the actual need is, and we're not confident that it's actually feasible to do something. So this might sound like, well, we've already promised it to the client. The CEO really, really wants this. Or the one we've heard a lot lately is, we really need an AI solution. And I had to get AI in there somewhere, right? So moving on to needs, what does that sound like? So if we've got low wants, high needs, and low feasibility, then you've probably actually found like a real user problem, but our current systems or skills can't support it. And so we're not confident there's actually a stakeholder want. We're really confident there's an underlying need, but we're also not confident whether we can deliver it. And so that might sound something like, well, we really know it matters, but we're not set up to tackle it right now. Or maybe our users desperately need this feature, but our current tech stack just can't support it. Or we've really identified this critical customer pain point. Yeah, but we've committed to the roadmap, so we can't do it. And then finally, looking at feasibility. So here we've got low wants, we've got low needs, and high feasibility. This is what we might typically call the build trap, or a tech-led distraction in some way, shape, or form. So the team's really excited about a solution or a technical capability, not an actual validated problem. So there's no pull from the users, there's no real need, there's no pull from the stakeholders, no real want, but it's easy to build, so or we've already built it. So we're not confident that stakeholders need it. We're not confident a user actually wants it. And we're really, really confident we could build it. And so that might sound a little bit like, well, we've already started this, so we may as well finish it. Or it's just really, really cool tech. Come on, let's just build it. And then obviously the big one is, hey, AI agents, they're going to solve all our problems, right? So, woohoo, we should do that. Okay, so that's the triangle of tension. How does that then start to look through our flow of work? Where might we experience that triangle? So obviously, as the work flows through, the wants are coming from the business and the PMO. And those wants are then discussed with security, architecture, tech leads to assume that or get the high-level feasibility. Next, we hand back to the BAs and the PMO to determine whether the feasibility of scheduling that across our teams, scheduling the delivery of those wants. We then attempt to deliver the work to meet the wants, and but actually find out it's not feasible. But hey, we're not going to ship the deadline, so that's been set. Let's just keep on shipping. And then finally, after long delays and rework, we deliver the wants into production. But at what point in this journey are we actually focusing on the needs? It's all about the wants and the feasibility. So how might we begin to start to navigate this triangle of tension a bit more effectively? And we really need to understand the objectives of the organization and start to gain clarity of purpose. So we need every team to have a clear understanding of what's driving the stakeholder wants, an evidence-informed understanding of who their users are and what they actually need, and a clear understanding of how feasible the desired outcomes are. So how can we actually start to move from the situation where we have wants and needs scattered across the whole value chain to something where we're actually considering wants, needs, and feasibility at every stage of the process? And so for this, then, we can start to turn towards the Team Topologies guiding principles. So there's 9, my voice is going, that's terrible. There's 9 in total, but these are the first 4. So the first one being focus on the flow of value. We've just seen the flow of value. So understand how the value flows through your organization, where it's blocked, where there might be handovers or bottlenecks. Next principle is looking at limiting cognitive load. So make decisions that are actually going to help your users improve their daily work without actually overwhelming them. We want to orient around the value consumers, so the users are consuming value. So understand who they are, what it is they need, and how those teams are actually delivering value to them. And then working in stable but not static teams. So form long-lived teams around those value streams to enable an environment that fosters autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And the teams being stable but not static, it's important to recognize it's the team that owns or stewards the value stream. That doesn't mean people have to stay in those teams, right? We can rotate people in and out of those teams, but the team owns the value stream or stewards the value stream. So what we're looking for is a situation where we've got clearly identified value streams with teams that steward them. So those teams should have stewardship across the whole life cycle. And each team has a clear understanding of what the business wants, what their users need, and the capabilities that they have to feasibly deliver value. But it also applies to platform teams too. So each platform team should have a clear understanding of the business outcomes and what they're looking to achieve. They need to understand their users, and their users are the internal streamlined teams within the system. And what capabilities have they got to effectively improve the flow of value and reduce the cognitive load of their value consumers? So, Faye, what now?
What now, indeed. So what now? Well, we've talked about identifying tension, where it comes from, how it shows up in organisations, and how interactions can help mitigate it. And there are many things that can be done to navigate tension well and enable teams to deliver effectively. But we'd like to leave you with a couple of simple, tangible recommendations, things that you can do straight away. Some of these things, some of the problems and things we described are huge, they're organisation situations, but we really want to focus in on actionable things that you can do within your own sphere of influence. And it all begins with trust, because influence is earned through trust. And even in dysfunctional organisations, you can take actions to build trust. Trust unlocks the opportunities that we've talked about today, and trust is the essential foundation for any team. So a quick show of hands, who's read the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team? Okay, speaking to the mostly converted. The book explains that teamwork is the ultimate competitive advantage. All teamwork is based on trust. Trust and respect are the foundations of any relationship. And being open, sharing our vulnerabilities, our weaknesses, and our mistakes with one another is how we build trust. Trust enables constructive conflict, which then enables better decisions. So trust really is the foundation of what we've discussed today. And in practice, building trust can look like getting to know each other as people, not just colleagues, making time for that, actively listening, being intentional, generously giving and receiving and asking for feedback, and making the invisible visible is a very tangible, practical way to build trust. So to make the invisible visible, we've got 3 things to recommend. In regard to wants and navigating that stakeholder situation, we recommend the 5 whys, because this helps us understand the drivers, the purpose, and the desired outcomes that are being asked for behind that request. In terms of needs, I would recommend user need mapping. He didn't make me say that. I did put that on him myself. Because it connects needs with capabilities and uncovers those hidden blockers that are part of the flow of value to users. And in terms of feasibility, a pre-mortem is a really excellent way of surfacing worries as well as possibilities and ideas to mitigate issues before they arise. So by being intentional, by being proactive, and also being responsive to those signals, we're better able to navigate the triangle of tension successfully. So we're going to look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. The 5 whys is essentially a coaching technique. So let's imagine a senior stakeholder has come to us and they've got a new solution that they want our team to build. But this solution, it's disconnected from what's being currently worked on, it's disconnected from the plans. It is those senior stakeholders' jobs to look to the future and push the company forward. But without understanding the why, it's really hard for teams to get behind those new requests, especially if it's disrupting current work and the things that they've invested in. So joining the dots and translating that future ambition into something the team can relate to enables understanding, and that's navigation. It's important to remember that this technique is not just about asking why 5 times, and I have learned that the hard way. Don't do that. What it's about is artfully crafting questions that are open and probing and enable you to dig deeper progressively and really get to the point of revealing the true drivers behind that initial request. User need mapping, obviously we'll have the author to tell us about that.
I forced her to put it in, honest. Yes, indeed. So once we've got clarity around the drivers behind the wants, we can start to explore how we go about meeting those needs. So we can use user needs mapping to start to visualize, make the invisible visible, and visualize how those needs connect to the business capabilities, and explore where we're aligned. So what does it start to look like? So we begin with a value chain axis on the left-hand side, and then we ask a deceivingly simple question. Who are your users? And you would be surprised at how many people struggle to even answer that one articulately. Next, we then ask, and what is it that they actually need? What outcome are they looking for? And are we understanding what it is that they're experiencing? Is it real? Are those needs actually aligned to what the business wants? And if it's not aligned with what the business wants, maybe we need to push back on it. We might need to do experimentation. We might need to make bets. We might need to test for appetite or validate as we build. But the important thing is we start to gain clarity about the underlying need. After gaining the clarity on the underlying need, we can begin to reveal the necessary work in order to meet that need. So that then helps us to recognize what capabilities that we require in the organization or the team in order to deliver on that need. But we don't just stop at the first visible capability. We want to explore down the value chain. What does that depend on? And what does that depend on further? So exploring the full value chain to the point where it's useful within the conversation. And then once we understand the capabilities that we have, we also recognize what capabilities we don't have, and therefore the impact of the cognitive load on the teams. Do we have the right skills to enable this to happen? And what help might that team need to make that happen? And then finally, we can ask, are we actually aligned in a way that effectively delivers value to the user by drawing the boundaries of stewardship? Are we clear about which team owns what capability and how they're interacting between each other? So does our current team interaction support or hinder the effective delivery of value to satisfy our stakeholder wants and our user needs? So now back to Faye for a quick one around a technique that helps you with feasibility.
Thank you. So the pre-mortem is helpful for surfacing those problems and those issues that we want to understand before we start a piece of work. So we've got the clarity of wants, we've got the clarity of needs, and we use that to inform our feasibility exploration. By running a pre-mortem exercise, we can get everyone together, and it can be quite cathartic. People can get things off their chest, and importantly, it reveals scenarios that can help mitigate those issues before they occur. It enables the whole team, including the stakeholders. It's really important to get everyone together to share their perspectives, listen to each other, and build empathy. And that enables the team and the work to be set up for success. So these are some example questions you can use if you want to run a pre-mortem session. And it's really important to give consideration to how are we going to do the work? What are the existing capabilities that we've got? How are teams currently organised around the flow of value? And which capabilities are missing? What might we need from somewhere else? And you can explore that through an exercise like this. So, in summary, bringing it all together by clarifying the drivers behind the wants and consistently aligning around evidence-based needs, we empower teams to make effective feasibility decisions. We've got so much more we could say about this. We've had to really edit ourselves for this talk. So if you do want to talk to us more, you can come and find us afterwards. We'll be downstairs at the Armakuni stand. And if you want to have a call at some point in the future, you can use this QR code. Our colleague Dexter will set it up. We've also got a bunch of tools we can share. But yeah, we'd really like to stay in touch. We'd really like to hear about your triangles of tension that you're navigating. So yeah, please stay in touch. Thanks for joining us.